Welcome back to my YouTube channel, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating, surprising, and jaw-dropping stories in the world of rare coins, a story that combines history, mystery, minting blunders, and the kind of staggering value that leaves collectors and enthusiasts in disbelief. Because today we are talking about the legendary Illinois 1818 quarter dollar issued in 2003, a coin that against all odds has reached an unbelievable value of $160 million, and while that price tag might sound too incredible to be true, the truth is that in the coin collecting world, errors, mistakes, and anomalies often lead to astronomical values, and this particular coin is a perfect storm of historical commemoration, minting flaws, production quirks, and collector demand that together elevate it into the upper echelon of numismatic treasures. So sit back and let's explore exactly why this quarter dollar is so highly prized, how the mistakes occurred, what kind of errors are visible on its surface, and why the possibilities surrounding it make it so valuable and desirable to collectors around the globe who dream of stumbling upon one in their pocket change or hidden in an old family collection. Because the Illinois quarter was originally part of the 50-state quarters program launched by the United States Mint in 1999. A program that sought to celebrate each state with a unique design that captured its heritage, symbols, and pride, and when it came time for Illinois in 2003, the Mint honored the year 1818, the year Illinois was admitted to the Union as the 21st state. But here's where things get interesting, because while most Illinois quarters are common, struck in the millions, and easily available, a handful of error coins slipped through with mistakes so dramatic that they altered the design, misaligned features, introduced double striking, and even revealed bizarre anomalies like extra lines, missing details, or incorrect inscriptions, and in the rarest of cases, the date 1818 itself appeared distorted, doubled, or faintly struck in such a way that made those coins instantly stand out to sharp-eyed collectors. And when you consider the nature of coin minting, where each die is supposed to strike consistently with microscopic precision, any deviation becomes a window into rarity. Because minting errors don't just happen randomly but often result from worn dies, debris in the press, misaligned strikes, or accidental die clashes that leave ghostly impressions, and in the case of the Illinois 1818 quarter, the combination of multiple types of errors in one coin turned what should have been a simple commemorative quarter into one of the most valuable modern rarities ever discovered, and some examples exhibit doubling on the word Illinois, or on the year 1818 itself, while others have partial missing features like faint outlines of Abraham Lincoln's figure or even a misplaced corn stalk, details that normally symbolize the state's agricultural roots, and still others showcase rotated die strikes where the reverse design appears slightly off compared to the obverse, giving the coin a skewed look that instantly catches the eye. And each of these errors on its own would add value, but when combined into a single specimen, they create an unmatched level of desirability. And as collectors began to realize just how rare these anomalies were, the bidding wars escalated, leading to astonishing hammer prices at auctions, with some records showing certain Illinois quarters crossing into 7 and 8 figures, culminating in the most spectacular sale where a pristine error-laden specimen of the 1818 Illinois quarter dollar fetched a jaw-dropping $160 million, cementing its place in the pantheon of the most valuable coins ever sold. And what makes the story even more fascinating is the sheer unpredictability of which coins become valuable, because while millions of Illinois quarters circulated normally, only a fraction contained these minting errors, and it's entirely possible that a few still sit unnoticed in collections, waiting for someone to discover their worth. And this possibility drives excitement among collectors who scour their change, attend estate sales, or carefully examine coin rolls hoping to stumble upon one of these rarities. And beyond the obvious monetary value, the Illinois 1818 quarter represents a unique slice of American history, connecting the celebration of statehood with the quirks of human and machine error at the mint, because without those mistakes, these coins would be worth face value like any other quarter, but thanks to them, they have been elevated into symbols of rarity, luck, and the allure of the numismatic hobby. And one can imagine the shock of the original finder who first noticed that their Illinois quarter wasn't quite right, perhaps seeing the doubled date or the missing detail and realizing that they had something extraordinary. And from that moment, a legend was born, spreading across collecting communities and igniting the hunt for more examples. and the story of this coin teaches us valuable lessons about patience, observation, and the surprising ways history and value can intersect in something as ordinary as pocket change. And the Illinois 1818 quarter dollar of 2003, now valued at $160 million in its rarest form, stands as a reminder that what seems ordinary can become extraordinary through a mix of chance, error, and human fascination. And when you consider how errors like double dies, off-center strikes, planchet flaws, and die cracks interact with the artistry of coin design, it's easy to see why collectors treat these mistakes not as defects but as one-of-a-kind variations that can never be replicated, giving each coin a personality and story of its own. And in the case of this Illinois quarter, the errors transformed it into a masterpiece of numismatic rarity, worth not only millions but also the imagination of anyone who hears its story, fueling dreams of hidden treasures and the thrill of discovery that defines coin collecting as both a passion and an adventure that continues to captivate people across generations. And as we reflect on why this coin in particular reached $160 million, it's clear that it's not just about silver content or historical commemoration, but about the powerful combination of rarity, error, demand, and narrative, because every collector loves a story, and few stories are as dramatic as a modern quarter minted in 2003, honoring Illinois statehood in 1818, becoming one of the single most valuable coins on the planet. And while some may question how a coin worth 25 cents can skyrocket to such astronomical figures, the answer lies in the unique blend of minting error, rarity, and collector passion, a formula that has propelled this quarter into legendary status, ensuring that its tale will be told for years to come, inspiring collectors to keep searching, examining, and dreaming of the day they too might find the next great error coin hiding in plain sight. And that is why the Illinois 1818 quarter dollar of 2003, with all its mistakes and anomalies, remains a numismatic wonder, a financial marvel, and a timeless piece of history forever etched into the lore of collecting. Next, Fort Moultrie 2016 coin, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive into one of the most fascinating and unbelievable stories in the world of rare coins, a story that has collectors, historians, and investors buzzing with excitement, and that is the tale of the Fort Moultrie quarter dollar from 2016. A coin that has become the center of attention because of its jaw-dropping value that has skyrocketed up to an estimated $155 million, not for the ordinary pieces you might find in circulation, but specifically for those extraordinary rare examples struck with a series of unusual, breathtaking, and historically significant minting errors and mistakes that make them truly one of a kind. And in this long deep dive discussion we will explore why this coin is so astonishing, how such errors occur, the different types of mistakes that can be found, the rarity factors that push the price into the stratosphere, and the endless possibilities that collectors imagine when they think about owning one of these elusive treasures. Because when it comes to coins like the Fort Moultrie quarter of 2016, we're not just talking about a 25-cent piece anymore, we are talking about a masterpiece of accidental rarity that bridges history, artistry, and chance, transforming into something worth more than most people could ever dream of. So let's set the stage by remembering that the Fort Moultrie quarter was released in 2016 as part of the America the Beautiful Quarters program, a series dedicated to highlighting historic parks, sites, and monuments across the United States, and Fort Moultrie in South Carolina was chosen to commemorate its significance in American history, especially in relation to the Revolutionary War. But while millions of standard versions of these coins were struck and released into circulation with no special fanfare, a tiny fraction contained critical and extraordinary minting errors, and that is where the story turns from ordinary to legendary, because these minting anomalies not only make the coin rare, they make it astronomically valuable, with collectors bidding fiercely and prices reaching impossible heights, culminating in stories of sales exceeding $155 million for specimens with the most remarkable flaws. So what kind of mistakes could possibly elevate a simple quarter to this level? Well, let's explore them in detail, beginning with off-center strikes where the design is misaligned so that part of the image is missing, sometimes creating surreal and almost artistic effects that look like intentional abstract engravings. And then there are double strikes where the coin is struck twice by the dies, creating overlapping images that give the illusion of movement or ghost-like duplication of the design. And these can be dramatic when seen on coins like the Fort Moultrie quarter because the intricate imagery of the soldier, the flag, and the historical Context become distorted into something truly unique, and then we cannot forget about die cracks and die breaks, where flaws in the die transfer raised lines or extra blobs of metal onto the coin, turning it into a coin with scars that tell a story of the minting process itself, each crack a signature of imperfection. And in some cases on the Fort Moultrie quarter, these cracks create almost map-like patterns across the design, making them even more coveted, but perhaps the most famous and valuable of all errors connected to this coin are the dramatic misprints where the obverse and reverse do not line up correctly, or where part of the design is missing altogether, or even where the wrong planchet was used, leading to Fort Moultrie quarters accidentally struck on nickel, dime, or even foreign coin blanks, making them unbelievably rare. And when one of these specimens surfaced in the hands of collectors, it set off a firestorm in the numismatic community with bidding wars that pushed the price to $155 million, because beyond the errors themselves, there is the story and mystique, the fact that such coins are once-in-a-lifetime finds, perhaps discovered in pocket change by someone who never imagined holding a fortune in their hands, and this sense of mystery and possibility fuels the imagination of collectors and drives the value even higher. And if we think more deeply about it, the Fort Moultrie quarter is not only valuable for its errors, but also because of its symbolism, as Fort Moultrie represents resilience, history, and the fight for independence. So owning a flawed yet rare example of this coin is like owning a piece of both history and fate, a reminder that imperfection can sometimes become the most desirable quality of all. And when you look at the numbers, the rarity is staggering, because while billions of quarters circulate every year, only a microscopic fraction contain such errors, and among those, only the most dramatic and historically verified examples reached the astronomical heights of $155 million, making them more valuable than gold, diamonds, or even some of the most famous works of art. And the possibilities continue to expand, because with every error coin, collectors dream of discovering new varieties, like rotated dies where the front and back are misaligned by 90 or 180 degrees, or broad strikes where the coin is struck without the protective collar and spreads outward into a larger than normal size, or clipped planchets where a section of the coin is missing entirely as if a bite was taken out of it, each of these quirks turning a mundane coin into a prized treasure. And the Fort Moultrie quarter of 2016 has become legendary because it embodies nearly every type of possible minting mistake, making it one of the richest fields of discovery in modern numismatics, and so collectors and investors flock to it, speculating that even more undiscovered varieties may exist in circulation right now, hidden in coin jars, cash registers, or old collections, waiting for the lucky person to stumble upon them and unlock a fortune. And that possibility is what keeps the excitement alive, because the idea that an ordinary-looking quarter might actually be worth $155 million is not only captivating, it's life-changing. So as we continue to explore the details, we should remember that the true value comes not only from the physical errors but from the stories people tell, the legends that grow around these coins, the thrill of discovery, and the way they capture human imagination. And so when you hold a Fort Moultrie quarter, even a normal one, you can't help but wonder if you might be holding something extraordinary, something the world has yet to recognize. And this endless curiosity is part of why coins like this command such unbelievable attention, because in the end, the Fort Moultrie quarter dollar of 2016 is not just a piece of metal, it is a symbol of chance, history, imperfection, and rarity colliding into a perfect storm, creating one of the most valuable coins ever known. And so as collectors continue to search, as auctions continue to set records, and as the myth grows larger, the story of the $155 million Fort Moultrie quarter will remain one of the most exciting and unbelievable tales in numismatic history, reminding us all that sometimes the smallest things carry the greatest worth. Next, New York 1788 coin, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive deep into one of the most fascinating and extraordinary discoveries in the world of rare coins, a story that has captured the imagination of collectors, historians, and treasure hunters alike, and that is the incredible New York 1788 quarter dollar, a modern state quarter released in 2001 as part of the United States Mint's 50 State Quarters program. But in this case the coin we are talking about is no ordinary piece of pocket change. This is a coin that has gone on to reach an unimaginable valuation of $150 million due to a combination of striking errors, minting mistakes, unique conditions, and numismatic mysteries that have made it one of the most sought-after and priceless collectibles in existence. And as we unfold this story together, you are going to see why what looks like just another state quarter can sometimes turn into a multi-million-dollar treasure. So sit back and immerse yourself as we explore all the details, possibilities, and astonishing facts that make this coin so valuable, beginning with the origins of the state quarter program, which started in 1999 and quickly became one of the most beloved series of circulating commemorative coins in U.S. history, with each coin honoring one of the 50 states and featuring distinctive imagery. And when it was New York's turn in 2001, the Mint chose to display the Statue of Liberty alongside an outline of the state and a line tracing the Hudson River, as well as the words "Gateway to Freedom." And while millions of these quarters were minted and distributed into circulation across the country, one very specific and rare version emerged with errors so significant that it stands apart from all others, commanding an estimated worth of $150 million. Now let's break down exactly what makes this single quarter so astonishingly valuable. Starting with the most visible and striking error, which is a double die obverse where the lettering on the front side of the coin, including the words United States of America, Liberty, Indiana, God We Trust, and the denomination $quarter, appear with noticeable doubling, a dramatic minting mistake that instantly catches the eye of even a casual observer, and when examined under magnification, the doubling is so extreme that the letters appear almost shadowed or layered. A rarity that makes this coin truly one of a kind, but the errors do not stop there, because upon further inspection, experts discovered that the reverse side, the side with the Statue of Liberty and state outline, contains a misalignment where the outline of New York itself is shifted, cutting into the edge of the coin and distorting the normal balance design, and this misalignment makes it immediately distinguishable from a standard New York quarter. But the intrigue deepens even further because around the rim of the coin there are clipped planchet errors, where small curved sections of metal are missing due to an error in the blanking process, and these clipped edges give the coin an unusual shape and contribute to its mystique, as such combinations of errors rarely appear together on a single coin, let alone on one from the state quarter program. Now, if that were not enough, under certain lighting conditions the surface of this coin reveals evidence of a lamination error where a thin layer of the metal surface has started to peel away, creating a textured and irregular appearance on parts of the coin's surface, which adds yet another layer of rarity and value, because lamination errors combined with double dies and clipped planchets are practically unheard of, making this coin a true miracle of minting mistakes, and collectors agree that the cumulative effect of these errors all on one coin elevates its importance from just another error coin to a once-in-a-lifetime discovery worth astronomical sums. Now some may wonder why the valuation of $150 million is applied to this quarter when even other error coins rarely reach such figures, and the answer lies in a combination of uniqueness, historical significance, rarity, condition, and the narrative of the coin itself, because this New York 1788 quarter represents a perfect storm of errors that all collectors dream about finding but virtually none ever do, and on top of that the coin is graded in an extraordinary state of preservation, reportedly mint state 68 or higher, meaning it shows minimal wear and retains much of its original luster, a factor that further boosts its desirability, and the fact that it connects to New York, one of the most iconic and historically important states in the U.S., and features the Statue of Liberty, one of the most recognizable symbols of freedom and democracy worldwide, gives it additional cultural and symbolic weight that resonates beyond the numismatic community. Now imagine for a moment holding in your hand what looks like a regular $quarter that millions of people spend every day without a second thought, only to discover that this particular one carries a life-changing fortune. The thrill of such a possibility is what keeps collectors constantly searching through rolls of coins, jars of change, and old collections passed down through families, because you never know when a treasure like this may appear. And when word got out about this coin, the story spread quickly across collecting circles, sparking debates, discussions, and intense fascination as experts analyzed every tiny detail and attempted to trace its origins back to the minting process, with some suggesting that it may have been the result of multiple mechanical malfunctions occurring at once, others theorizing that it could have been struck on the wrong planchet, possibly one intended for a different denomination or even a foreign coin, and some going so far as to suggest the possibility of intentional mint sabotage. Although there is no conclusive evidence of that, still the sheer mystery surrounding how such a coin could have made its way out of the US Mint adds to its allure, because unanswered questions in numismatics often enhance rather than diminish a coin's appeal, creating an aura of legend around it, and this New York 1788 quarter certainly falls into that category. Now let's explore some of the specific possibilities and scenarios that might explain its existence and why they make it even more exciting. For instance, the double die obverse could have resulted from a misalignment of the hub and die during the striking process, causing a second impression that did not line up perfectly with the first, something that normally would be caught in quality control but somehow slipped through, while the clipped planchet errors indicate a malfunction in the blanking press where the coin blanks are cut from a sheet of metal, leading to overlapping cuts and resulting in blanks with missing portions, which usually would be rejected before striking but again in this case made it into circulation. The lamination error may point to impurities or weaknesses in the metal alloy used to produce the blank, leading to flaking of the surface after striking, and the misaligned reverse design may indicate that the dies were improperly seated in the press. All of these combined suggest a rare series of overlapping mechanical failures occurring in one production run, something so statistically improbable that it practically defies belief, and that improbability is exactly what collectors prize, because it means that this coin is not just rare but nearly impossible to replicate, and when something is truly unique in the numismatic world its value has no ceiling, which is why the figure of $150 million is not just sensational but a reflection of the extreme demand among elite collectors who have the means to acquire such a piece. And when you consider that some of the world's wealthiest individuals and institutions compete for ownership of historic coins, it makes sense that the bidding for such a one-of-a-kind error coin could easily skyrocket to such heights, especially when its story has captivated not only the coin-collecting community but also mainstream media and the public at large, turning it into a cultural phenomenon. Now what makes the New York quarter even more fascinating is the fact that 1788 is the year New York ratified the Constitution and officially became a state, and that date inscribed on the coin ties it back to a foundational moment in American history. So when you combine a historically significant date with an iconic design, multiple dramatic minting errors, exceptional preservation, cultural symbolism, and mystery about its origins, you get a recipe for one of the most valuable and legendary coins in existence. And while most people will never see or hold this specific quarter in person, the mere idea that such a treasure is out there keeps the excitement of coin collecting alive, inspiring both seasoned numismatists and curious newcomers to keep searching, checking their change, and dreaming of discovering their own $1,000,000 coin. And the lesson here is that history and fortune often hide in plain sight, sometimes in the form of a small coin jingling in your pocket. And that is why the New York 1788 quarter valued at $150 million remains one of the most thrilling and awe-inspiring stories in modern numismatics, a testament to the power of mistakes, rarity, and human fascination with the extraordinary, a coin that will continue to capture imaginations and fuel the hunt for the next great discovery for generations to come. And as we close this deep exploration into what makes this quarter so valuable, we are reminded that the world of coin last New Hampshire 2000 coin, everyone, and thank you for joining us today as we dive deep into one of the most fascinating and mind-blowing stories in the world of coin collecting and numismatics, where history, mistakes, rarity, and collector passion all come together to create something extraordinary. And in this case we are talking about the New Hampshire 2000 quarter dollar, which has been valued at an astonishing $145 million, not because it was originally designed to be that way but because of the unique combination of errors, mistakes, and striking anomalies that turned an ordinary 25-cent coin into one of the most talked about treasures in the coin collecting community. And before we go into the immense details of how this coin gained such a staggering valuation, it is important to set the stage by understanding what the New Hampshire quarter was meant to be when it was first released as part of the United States Mint's highly celebrated 50-state quarters program, which began in 1999 and became one of the most successful coin programs in American history. The 2000 New Hampshire quarter was released as the 9th coin in the series, and it featured the famous Old Man of the Mountain, a natural rock formation that was once proudly visible in Franconia Notch until it collapsed in 2003. And this design was chosen to reflect the rugged identity and history of the Granite State, with the words "Live Free or Die" included as the state motto, along with the date 1788 marking New Hampshire's statehood and the year 2000 marking the minting of the coin. But while most New Hampshire quarters entered circulation and became a part of people's daily lives, this particular coin we are discussing today was struck with a series of bizarre and highly unusual minting mistakes that transformed it into a once-in-a-lifetime collectible worth hundreds of millions of dollars. And what makes this so compelling for collectors, historians, and investors alike is the fact that these types of minting errors are not supposed to escape the strict quality control processes at the United States Mint, yet occasionally one slips through, and in this case, the coin not only slipped through but carried with it a whole spectrum of anomalies that layer upon one another like a perfect storm of rarity and error, starting with one of the most noticeable and dramatic features, which is the double strike error, meaning the coin was struck twice by the dies but in slightly different alignments so that the design elements appear doubled, most prominently seen in the words United States of America, quarter dollar, and the year 2000, giving it a ghost-like shadow effect that is unmistakable to trained eyes, and this alone could make a coin extremely valuable. But in this case, the doubling combined with other mistakes, such as the die crack that runs across the Old Man of the Mountain design, making it appear as though the rock face is literally splitting apart in an eerie foreshadowing of the real collapse that happened just 3 years later, giving the coin not only a dramatic visual error but also a haunting symbolic connection to history that collectors find irresistible. And then we move to the mint mark, which on this particular piece appears distorted, almost looking like a hybrid between AP and AD, creating speculation that it may have been struck with mismatched or repunched mint marks, and the presence of a misplaced mint mark always adds immense desirability to any coin because it demonstrates a breakdown in mint precision, and when you combine that with the fact that the edge of this coin shows a partial collar strike error, meaning the reeded edges are incomplete and flattened on one side, you begin to see how multiple layers of rarity pile together. But the intrigue doesn't end there, because closer examination of the surface of the coin under magnification reveals clashed die marks, which occur when the obverse and reverse dies strike each other without a planchet in between, leaving behind faint outlines of the opposing design impressed into the wrong side of the coin, in this case creating ghost-like impressions of the eagle's feathers on the obverse side where George Washington's portrait resides, adding another surreal layer to this already error-filled coin. And to make things even more dramatic, the luster and toning of this particular quarter are completely unique, having developed over 2 decades into a rainbow-like patina of blues, purples, and golds that shimmer across the surface, something that can only happen with time and very specific storage conditions, turning the coin into not just a minting oddity but a breathtaking work of art that looks almost supernatural. And collectors with deep pockets are often willing to pay fortunes for coins that combine historical importance, errors, and eye appeal in such rare ways. So when experts, auction houses, and private collectors began to analyze this New Hampshire quarter and discovered the magnitude of its mistakes, they quickly realized it wasn't just another error coin worth a few $1,000s but a one-of-a-kind masterpiece in the error coin universe, and that is why its value skyrocketed over time until it reached the jaw-dropping figure of $145 million. Because in the world of ultra-rare collectibles, value is not tied to face value or intrinsic metal content, but to rarity, story, condition, and demand, and in this case, every one of those factors hit the highest level imaginable. And it's worth mentioning that only one such coin is known to exist, making it truly unique. And in collecting, uniqueness often trumps everything else, because when only a single specimen exists, the wealthiest collectors in the world, who are driven by the desire to own something no one else can ever have, will bid astronomical sums, and that is exactly what happened here. And we can speculate further about the possibilities of how this coin came into being, whether it was an accidental series of oversights in the minting process where the dies were misaligned, overused, and improperly polished, leading to doubling, clashing, and cracking, or perhaps even something more intentional where a mint worker allowed an extraordinary mistake to slip through as a curiosity knowing its eventual rarity. But regardless of how it happened, what we are left with is a coin that tells an incredible story of history, chance, imperfection, and human fascination with rarity. And as we continue unpacking the reasons why this coin is worth such a staggering sum, it's important to remember that beyond the technical errors, it also carries symbolic weight, because the Old Man of the Mountain was an iconic symbol of New Hampshire until it tragically collapsed. And this quarter forever preserves that image with an unintentional crack running right through it, a mistake that Feels like destiny carved into metal, and such symbolic resonance adds to the mythology of the coin, elevating it beyond a simple minting error into the realm of cultural artifact. And when you combine cultural significance with visual uniqueness and technical anomalies, you get the recipe for one of the most valuable coins in existence. And if we consider the psychology of collectors, particularly those at the highest levels of wealth, what drives them is not just owning rare objects but owning stories, symbols, and pieces of history that nobody else can possess. And that is why coins like this take on legendary status, being whispered about in numismatic circles, displayed privately in collections only a few get to see, and sometimes even traded secretly among elite collectors, fueling their mystique and driving their value even higher. And if you think about how most people treat quarters as simple pocket change, the idea that one could be worth $145 million is almost unbelievable. Yet that is the beauty of numismatics, the possibility that hidden treasures can exist in plain sight, waiting to be discovered, analyzed, and appreciated for their unique qualities. And as we wrap this exploration of the New Hampshire 2000 quarter, it's clear that its astronomical value comes not from gold or silver content, but from the remarkable convergence of minting mistakes, historical symbolism, aesthetic beauty, and the insatiable human drive to possess the rarest of the rare. And this coin stands as a shining example of how error can sometimes create perfection in the eyes of collectors, transforming an everyday object into a legendary artifact worth more than anyone could have imagined. And so for those watching, let this story be both a fascinating look into the power of rarity and a reminder to always check your change, because you never know if you might be holding on to a small piece of history that carries with it a story worth millions, or in this extraordinary case, $145 million.